dive deep into topics of our everyday lives. I am your host, Manny. Some of you knows me as JR and others as J_Addict for my social media followers. Today, we will be discussing a great topic, right? Purchasing your first home and the different options. We have a guest. Um, I wrote a little something for you.
Okay.
All right, a
All
little
right.
intro. So we have with us Mr. Printing Money himself, Mr. Capital Games, Sam the Realtor, Sam the Investor, here with us and he's prepared to drop some knowledge on the real estate game. Thank you for coming, Sam.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate the introduction.
A little something, something.
Yes, thanks, man.
And Sam, you know specifically why I chose you for this topic.
Yes.
I believe many people, to my audience, we're ready to get into it. We're ready to get into our first homes and treat it as an investment,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of people say that your biggest asset, your biggest purchase should be your home and whatever. But I want to dive into a little bit on how it's capable for everyone, right? And
Yes.
how when you do buy a home, it's certain things that you have to put in place so that it can be an asset and not a liability.
Exactly.
So to start off real quick, just please tell the audience who you are, how you got into real estate.
Yes. Okay. My name is Sam Rekasima, also known as Sam the Investor, Sam the Realtor.
Yes, sir.
And real estate is my specialty. Multifamily is my specialty. And I'm really excited to be here today to really share with the audience the power of investing in real estate, especially your first property. Most people, their property is the biggest purchase of their life, their first property. So it's important that you really take the time and do your due diligence and making sure that you pick the right property that's right for you. And if you do, it can really change your life over time, you know. So I'm excited to really share the message and really deep dive into how to go about getting your first property, what steps to take, and how I could be helpful in that process as well.
Absolutely. And Sam, I think something that people don't understand is that in order for you to know how to purchase your first property, first you have to know the position that you're in.
Yeah, so it really, let's start from the beginning, which is finances, right?
Yes.
You know, everybody wants the dream house, dream home, dream car, but it really starts like with the dream business, right? What's
Yeah.
your income? How are you funding it? And it's really important that you have your finances in order. And that can mean a variety of things. You know, down payment is typically what stops most people from getting their first property because they just think that they need to have all this money to start and, 20% down, which is not necessarily true. You don't
Yeah.
have to start off with 20% down for your first property. Also, what people typically, their biggest hindrance is their credit score, right? If they're not in a position where their credit is in a position where they can utilize the, leverage banks and loans and things like that, it's going to be actually more difficult. Down payment is probably one of the least of one of your issues. And then the next thing is income, right? But even with income, you have options, right? You don't have to do it alone, right? You can leverage friends, family members. There's different things that you can do, leverage multifamily to help you qualify for a larger mortgage. So with all those different aspects, that's what really stops most people. But especially in the world that we live in today, where you see inflation is just through the roof for the past 5-6 years, and I really don't see it slowing down at any point. So the longer you wait to get into your first property, it just means that when you actually do buy it, it's just going to be that much more expensive.
I hear
So
you.
if there's a way that you can get into a property now by not having to save 20% for your down payment and going FHA and doing 3.5%, I would highly, highly recommend taking advantage of those programs and really just getting your first property and then let that appreciation, let the inflation start working for you instead of against you.
Okay. And for my audience, so I know Sam mentioned having your dream business first, something that generates income. But let's talk a little bit to those people that have a 9 to 5, right?
Yes.
And that are paying rent. Rent is like everyone's biggest expense.
Biggest expense, yes.
Right? And sometimes we're in positions where I'm speaking for my audience that work, they have their 9 to 5s. We're in positions where, how do I say, we have the income, right? Because now we're working, but we don't have the savings, we don't have the collateral, we don't have the down payment,
Right.
and our credit might not be looking too good.
Right.
It's not looking too sexy right now. But how you were saying, there are different options. And even those people, right? They have the option to get into their first property. And I think right now, a lot of the feedback I've been getting from like friends and family when I speak about buying my first home, I'm looking to purchase my first home. I would say before the summertime, I need to get into a property.
All right, let's do it.
It's about time. And I would say their biggest how do I say comeback is, oh, the market isn't right,
Right.
and that interest rates this, and that is expensive and whatever. And we're gonna get into that a little bit more later
Yeah.
on. But I'm very big on like if the numbers make sense, then what are we talking about? But right, so for those people who might have a hard time, right, getting approved, let's say, by a bank, or that are intimidated by, oh, well, prices are expensive right now and I have to get 20% down. So let's talk a little bit about FHAs.
Yeah, let's talk about it. And to your point, when you're talking to people, people are typically coming from a good place, right? They're trying to protect you, but a lot of time they're projecting some of their own thoughts and feelings about homeownership onto you, and that may be a hindrance as to why they maybe have not pulled the trigger. But I would say you really have to just, you know, look inside, look at yourself, look at your situation, and look at your goals, look at your dreams. Maybe their goals and their dreams don't align with yours. So maybe you should just really focus on what you would like your future to look like, and does a property fit in that? And then I would also say is there ever a bad time to be an owner?
I don't think so.
Right? Yes, there's better times to be in the market, better times to be out the market, but unless you're a fix and flipper and you're really trying to time the market, and you know you're going to hold this asset, this property, at least 5 years, you can ride the waves, right? As long as you can afford the payment. And you said, like you said, if you have a 9 to 5 and you've got a good job and you've got a good career and you feel like you could consistently make income, and then again, when you're paying rent, people are concerned about interest rates. You're paying 100% interest.
Yeah,
Every time, you're never going to
every
see
month.
any of that money back when you pay that rent. So interest rates go up, interest rates go down. That's just how markets operate. But if you're comfortable with the number, you're comfortable with the property, and you plan on living there for 5 years plus, you're typically usually always better owning versus renting in the long run.
And with a FHA, how does that give someone leverage with the numbers?
All right, so let's really break this down. So first, FHA is Federal Housing Administration. It's a government backed loan where the government is basically subsidizing or backing a loan, so the bank feels more confident in giving you a loan, right? So the government is saying, hey, I know this person may not have the best credit. By the way, you can get an FHA loan with as little as a 580 credit score. Most lenders, they will not lend with you with a 580 credit score. But with FHA, because the government is backing, lenders feel confident that they can give out these loans because the government is saying, we want you to give loans to people with lower credit scores because we want lower income and people with maybe not as great credit to still be able to buy a home.
So off rip right now, we're tackling that concern of people with the credit,
Yes,
right? With the
yes.
FHA.
Yes. So you can do it with the 580 credit score. Yes, you're not going to get the best rate because your credit isn't A1, but it's not going to stop you from getting the property, right? With the 580 credit score, you could still, do some things. Obviously, the better the credit score, the better the rate.
Absolutely.
The better, a little bit easier to qualify as far as getting approved for different properties, but you can still make it possible. Second, you talked about how, with the federal FHA, you could put down 3.5%.
Yes.
Right? That's a big difference than 20%
big gap
on your conventional mortgage. So if you have, let's say, a $400,000 home or $500,000 home, because that's typically what around prices in New Jersey, Northern Jersey, is going to cost you at least about $500,000 for a home. That would be 20% down, would be $100,000. That might take somebody years to save up $100,000.
Yeah.
Right? But if you do FHA, 3.5% down, now you could put down $17,500. Difference.
Big
right?
difference. Huge
difference.
Game changer.
And then, like you also mentioned, you can get a gift from a family member, a friend, right? So if you don't have the whole 17,500, if you know somebody who's, wants to invest in you and believe in you and wants to help you achieve your dream of homeownership, they might give you the 17,000. They may give you 10,000, or maybe you get 3 different people to give you 5,000, right?
Yeah.
And then you put in the 2,500 yourself, and now you have your down payment.
Absolutely.
And on top of that, there's also loans where they can actually finance your down payment at 3.5%, where they include it into the loan.
Let's talk about that.
So let's talk about that. So there's different types of loans with different lenders where they may be able to actually help you finance that down payment of 3.5%. So if you don't have the 17,500, you don't have a friend or a relative who's willing to give it to you, you can actually add it into your loan. Now the rate will be a little bit higher, but again, it's not going to stop you from getting the property.
And this is still with the FHA.
It's like an FHA with an additional type of it's a separate loan, but it's all factored in together, right?
Okay.
It's a program. And then on top of that, there's a government grant. New Jersey has a called NJHFMA. It was basically a government loan in a way where they will give you your down payment, right? So again, you don't need the down payment yourself if you qualify, because again, you do have to qualify. There's income guidelines and things like that. But if you qualify, they can also give you your down payment for your property as well.
So now there's FHA loans, right?
Yep.
There's add-ons we could do to FHA loans.
Yep.
And I heard you mention before there's different type of FHA loans. I wrote it down, a 203K
yes.
for fixer uppers, right?
Yes.
And how does that one work?
So let's go back to the $500,000 example, right? Let's say you have a property and, it's, say you need a $500,000 property. But let's say the property needs some work, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can go to the seller and say, hey, this property needs a lot of work. If you can negotiate where you pay $400,000, let's say, for the property, and then let's say you need about $50,000 in renovations, you can do an FHA 203K loan where they'll give you $400,000 for the purchase, and they'll give you an additional loan of $50,000 to do the renovations. So your total loan will be $450,000, but now you have enough for the purchase and the renovations.
And Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, right? Let's say we get this FHA 203K and we get to invest the money and fix up that house. Did we just go up in equity?
Yes, typically that's why you want to buy a fixer upper property, because you're forcing the appreciation, right? Let's say
it's a win-win.
Yeah, it's a win-win. Now you're doing more work, right?
Yeah,
it's more work, but because you're putting in the sweat equity, you're getting that equity back on the back end.
Okay.
Right. So typically when somebody wants to get a finished product, they're going to have to pay a premium, right? If you want a property and it's all fixed up, new floors, new bathroom, new kitchen, you're going to pay a much higher price. Let's say that same property all fixed up, maybe $550,000, $600,000.
Yes.
But because of the condition that it's in, you're going to be able to get it for $400,000. You put $50,000 worth of work into it, and now when you're done, it could be worth $550,000. So now you forced appreciation of about $100,000, and now you have $100,000 worth of equity.
That's awesome. And that's just all we're talking, all FHA, low down payment. And we just put in a position to win. We just put ourselves in a position to win.
And you're putting your position to win because you own the asset. And instead of having to wait to save up to get the money, you can get the property right away. You don't have to wait. These are things that you can actively do to become a homeowner. And like you said, now not only are you a homeowner, if you're investing in multifamily, you're also an investor, right? Because now you're getting rental income from those properties as well. Now you can use that to springboard you to get your next property as well.
Okay. And now we're going to transition into those people in my audience that do have good credit.
Yes.
Right? And that can go and get approved for a mortgage, and then now they have leverage and they can shop around, right?
Yes.
So I want to talk about those people that, and that's some sauce for you guys. If you can go to the bank and get approved for a mortgage, now you have leverage to go and close out a deal, right? Right, Sam?
Well, what it is now, you get to kind of shop around, right? When you have good credit, now you're in the driver's seat because you're going to have multiple lenders who are going to want to deal with you, right? And let's say, right now the rate about hovering around 7% for a 30-year mortgage. It's a little bit lower though if you go FHA, right? So you can get a little bit lower rate, but now you don't have to just wait for that one bank who's only dealing with people with who have lower credit scores.
Yes.
You can say, hey, I've got a 750 credit score. I make $120,000 a year. You're going to be able to pick which lender that you want, and they're going to have to be competitive in their pricing, right? And they should be able to be, because they should be competing for your business, because that's a good loan. That's a loan they're going to want, and that's a loan that it's going to be easier for them to process and get through. So if you have a better credit score, you have good income, now you're in the driver's seat where you can kind of dictate to say, hey, this one person is giving me 7%. Can you give me 6.75?
Absolutely.
Right? Can you give me 6.5 or whatever it is. And then now you kind of shop around and see whoever's going to give you the best rate with the lowest origination fees, closing call, like all those other fees
Yeah,
that they
yeah, yeah.
charge. And then now you can be like, all right, I'm going to pick this one. And that's who I want to work with.
And we gave a couple examples of how you can get the down payment, right? We can go to other people, maybe friends or
Yep.
family, right? We can go do grants
Yes.
with the government.
Yes.
And I want to throw in a little curveball
Go
in
ahead.
there. 401ks.
Yes. Yes. So that's actually how I bought my first property.
Okay.
You know, at the time I was working at the bank. I didn't make a lot of money, but you know, I think I had like 40K in my 401k because I worked there for 5 years and I just, you know, put the max, whatever it was every year. So I didn't have the money that I needed for my down payment. I needed about $30,000, I think, to close my property. This was 12, 13 years ago.
Okay.
I didn't have it. I think I had like maybe like $2,000 in my savings account at the time, maybe 3,000.
We can relate.
Right? But I did have my 401k. So I went to my 401k provider. I said, hey, I'm trying to buy a property. You know, how much can I borrow against my 401k for the down payment? They're like, oh, you could borrow up to whatever, 25K. I said, all right, I'll do it. I'll take it.
And there's actually like no penalty if you do it to buy your first home, right?
Absolutely. You could take that money out and basically it's a loan against your 401k. And they took it out of my paycheck every 2 weeks. I paid that loan back maybe in about 3 or 4 years. And then I still had my 401k. And then that loan got paid off. And now I had the property. And that's kind of, you know, how I got my first property. And I would suggest anyone, if you have a 401k, use it, put the max, especially if your company is matching.
Yes.
That's part of the reason why I had so much is my company was matching basically dollar for dollar. So if I put in $100, they put in $100. So if there's a company that you have and they're doing a match, you want to really take advantage of that match, max out whatever the max is. And then that way you can, you know, take advantage of when it's time to go buy a property. You take a loan against it and you use that for your down payment for your property.
Absolutely. Sam, we're going to sidetrack a little bit.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. When does it go to let me word this correctly. When does it go from being a multi-family and to being how many units does it take for it to be that difference where that now you're an investor and you have to put the 20% down? Like, is that right? That's a thing.
Well, so the way it really works is I would say that if called primary residence, owner occupied, right?
Okay.
That's what qualifies for FHA. Primary residence, owner occupied.
So as long as you live in there.
Right. Like that could be a 2, 3, or 4 unit property.
Okay.
Right. Single family as well. But 2, 3, and 4 unit properties. Those are the type of properties that will qualify for a primary residence and you know, owner occupied. You could qualify for FHA and things like that. Once you go over 4 units, you're no longer going to be able to be owner occupied. You're no longer going to be able to do FHA. And then now that's when you have to put your typical, you know, 20% down for your either an investor loan, basically.
Okay. And I have a question for you. This is something that I heard the other day. I'm in the barbershop. Look how funny things are. I'm in the barbershop and the guy in the seat that's getting the haircut next to mine, he's talking about how he's into real estate. And he was saying, well, sometimes you can get a single family to start off, renovate the attic and the basement and turn those into rental units also. And then now it's like you get something for a little cheaper price, but then you can manage and have it pay itself still. How is that something that you have experience with?
That's a strategy as well. Like you can have a single family home, right? And then let's say you do some renovations on it where you can try to make basically an extra unit out of it, where you can rent out that unit as well. And then now somebody's helping you pay your mortgage with that. That's one strategy as well. Or what I've seen some people do is they'll buy a single family home. Let's say it has 3 or 4 bedrooms, and then they'll just rent out the bedrooms.
And how does that work from like a legal point of view? Like does the city say something about that? Like,
no, it's your house. So
right.
You can rent to your friends, you could rent to your
I heard
family,
that, right?
you could rent to strangers. Now, there is a legal aspect, so you do need to get a lawyer, because if you're having now you're leasing a space to somebody, you're gonna have to get a lease, whether it's, you know, month to month or 1 year. There's gonna be a legal contract. And now, since they're gonna become a tenant, they now have rights to stay in that property.
Absolutely.
Right? So you do have to kind of factor that in as well. But these are things that you could absolutely do. Now, as far as the city, if they come to inspect and they say there's an illegal space or an illegal unit, that's a different story. But
Okay.
if you're just renting out a room or renting out an attic or a basement on a single family home, then it is what it is.
And I want to clarify for my audience the reason why I'm throwing these curveballs at Sam is because the point in you buying a property is so that you don't have to come out of pocket at the end of the day. These scenarios is so that the money that you were paying in rent, you can at least pocket it or put it into another investment, right?
And that's really the biggest hack. That's what it's called, house hacking. When
Yes.
you live in a property, you're getting rental income from it, and ideally you want to be able to live for free because, like you said before, most people's biggest expense is their housing expense.
Mhm.
Whether they rent, whether they own, that's the largest payment that they have to make. So if there's a way that you could reduce that or get rid of it completely, now that frees up cash for you to do other things. Right now, maybe you can invest in the stock market because now you don't have to put up $2,000 a month in rent, and now you can make your money back that way, or you can use that money
Absolutely.
to save up now to try to get your second property and things like that. So if there's a way that you can reduce your biggest expense, and now you're going to get a little bit extra cash where you can save more. But when I say save, I mean save to invest. Right?
Absolutely.
You don't save just to save. You want to save because you have a goal, you have a plan, and you want to multiply those dollars.
Okay. And to go back on track, right? Let's rewind a little bit now. So, grants, assistance, and other resources. I have something here called HUD's Good Neighbor Next Door program,
Ye-
right?
Yes. So that is a program for first responders, teachers, um, you know,
I see
nurses,
EMTs,
doctors,
teachers.
EMTs,
Yes.
firefighters. These are special programs where HUD is like um, it's a government agency where they basically provide housing to people. And if you're in those qualified for those certain types of professions, they actually have homes put aside just for that, those professions. Now you do have to qualify, you have to fill out certain lists and do certain things like that. But if you can find a property that's on the HUD list and you're like a first responder, you're a firefighter, you're a police officer, you basically have first dibs on these types of
That's
properties.
awesome.
Yes. So there's different ways that you can go to HUD.com and really look and see what homes are available in your area. If you qualify, you could really start to really try to get one of those properties as well. Those are typically single family, but it's an asset. And also, if you're a firefighter, police officer, certain lenders have special loans that have typically lower rates
Okay.
because you're a first responder. So if you're a first responder, you qualify, tap into your local lenders to see what discounts they're giving for people in your profession.
I also saw something that veterans can do something like 0% down.
Yes, so that's called a VA loan. So if
Okay.
you served in the military, you can buy a property with 0% down. The government will let you, again, it's another government-backed program.
0% down.
0% down. So you can go buy a house. Let's say it's $500,000 for the house. The government will say, we'll give you $500,000 loan to buy that house where you don't have to
Wow.
put anything for your down payment. So this is, again, another powerful tool that veterans can use. And you can do that for a single family, a multifamily, so that's really powerful if you are you served in the military and you have your VA loan available. And I know people in the service who actually have multiple properties using VA loans. So
Wow.
there's ways that you can really maximize it and really build a real estate portfolio with VA loans.
I just got an idea.
Go for it.
If someone knows someone that's served, but they're not looking to get into property, like, right?
Yes,
Why not
tap
leverage
into
those
them.
people?
Yes, see if they want to be a signer on the property.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I have this here USDA loans for rural areas.
Yeah, so that's like if you have farmland and things like that, there's special loans that the government again is giving out to people in those areas because they're really trying to stimulate like farming and things like that.
Is that common in here in Jersey?
Not where we live in the North Jersey area, but in certain areas of South Jersey where it is more rural and there's more farmland and there's more space. Those are perfect types of loans that you could actually tap into to get, maybe a 5-10 acre property. And if you plan on, let's say, having some livestock, cows and horses and vegetation, that could be something, that you definitely want to tap into and use that to really help you either buy a property or build one from the ground up.
Okay. Well, those are some options for everyone, especially for those who serve us, teachers, EMTs, firefighters, police officers, even veterans. Please just use that to your advantage. You know, you serve and you protect us and you do so much for our country, right?
Yes,
Those
absolutely.
are things and tools that people have. And for those of you that know someone in your family that does so and might be a little bit skeptical into getting into it, you can use them as leverage. Always remember the people around you, your network is your
Your
net
net
worth,
worth. Yes,
right?
yes.
So pitfalls to avoid as a first time buyer, right? A common mistake that we were talking about a little bit earlier, where if you're a person that has good credit, has income, has things like this, use these lenders to your advantage.
Yes.
And I always thought like when I worked at the bank, it was funny. Some people will come in, bro, and they knew like they was hot. They knew they was smoking hot. It was like, yeah, you're blessed for me to sit in your chair. And it's true. Why? Because they know they have the leverage. Have you dealt with clients like that, Sam, where they have the power in their hand, basically?
Well, they put themselves in a position where they can kind of dictate, who they're going to work with, right? And I do have clients who, they have good credit and they good income, good savings, and they get to pick and choose. That's typically what when you have resources, you have options, right? The more resources you have, the more options you have. That's pretty much like everything in life.
For those people, what would be their biggest like obstacle into getting a property? I think we spoke on it like, oh, the market or this or that. Like,
Yeah, but you got to realize those people they understand it, right? Like when you're in that position, you understand. All right, this may not be the best time to buy a property, but I like that property.
oh,
That's the property that
yes,
I want, right? And they're like, all right, everyone else thinks it's a bad time, but you know what? I see the value in that property, right? So they're going to be more selective about the properties that they choose because they have more options, more resources, and maybe they have a different vision, right? Where everyone else is looking at the property like, I'm not sure. They're like, oh, I know what to do with that. I know how to make that more valuable.
well, you said that sometimes what's a red flag for some people is other people see as a like one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Yeah. So, I mean, this just kind of goes into the pitfalls. So, if you are new, you don't want to bite off more than you can chew, right? So, although you may have access to a FHA 203K loan, if it's a complete like gut job renovation and you have no experience and you don't have leverage with anyone who does have experience, and you try to take on this project, and let's say you didn't meet with the right person and you didn't run your numbers correctly and
Yes,
you thought it was going to be one thing and it turns out to be something else, that could be a bad situation for you, right? But if you have experience or you can work with somebody who has experience, and let's say like I said, like you said, there's a red flag, maybe there's the roof needs to be fixed, or maybe there's some issues maybe with plumbing or something like that, where it's going to drive some people away because they don't want to do the work, but
mm-hmm.
you have people in your corner who are familiar with it and they can give you good prices, and now your numbers are actually your numbers, because sometimes you get an estimate and it's not realistic. Sorry. Sometimes you get an
Get the
estimate and it's
books.
not realistic. But if you have a realistic estimate and it meets your numbers, now you're coming from a position of strength. And then now that deal may look better for you because you have an understanding and you have a way to make that deal actually make sense.
Because at the end of the day, bottom line, we want the numbers to make
And
sense.
they must have to make sense.
Everyone is in the position to go and get the first property. So credit shouldn't be a worry. If you don't have the down payment, that shouldn't be a worry. If you don't have the income, it shouldn't be a worry. You put yourself in the position to win, correct? And then
Correct.
at the end of the day, the numbers just got to make sense. So if you have a mortgage of $4,000 and you have units that you could rent out 2,000, and it's paying itself, now the money that you were spending on rent, you have something, right?
Yes.
So it's always about putting yourself in a position to win. And as we wrap it up now, Sam, I know you have a team. I know that you've been doing this for a little while. So go ahead and promote yourself. Tell the people what it is that you do, how you do it, and that you can do it right now.
Yeah. So again, my name is Sam Arekasima, Sam the Realtor, Sam the Investor, and I help first-time homebuyers become investors If that's you, reach out. I'd love to work with you. I'd love to help you navigate the process of getting your first property and making sure that it's an asset and that it's the right property for you. And if you have dreams of being an investor, you want to get more properties, I'm here to help. I'm here to really just be a resource and use all my skills, use all my resources, my network to be part of your network. So now you can lean on that. So that way you can get your dream result as well.
Thank you so much, Sam. And to wrap it up, I want to thank everyone that tuned in today. Remember, you were here for a reason, not for a season. So please click below and subscribe and stay blessed by the best. Thank you for joining today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Manny.
Thank you, Sam.
Absolutely.